inch by inch, play by play, till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen, believe me. And we can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell, 1 inch at a time. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's going to make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. There's 6 inches in front of your face. Now, I can't make you do it. You got to look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now, I think you're going to see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're going to see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're going to do the same for him. That's the team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals.
Ideas are bulletproof.
Welcome to the show, guys. It is Sunday, 8/21/2011. This is Down the Rabbit Hole, and I'm your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. Today, I'm joined by my friend Susan Lindauer, and she's hanging out with me for the first hour of the show, and she's been so kind to come on pretty much last minute because I contacted her last night and asked her if she wanted to come on and discuss what's been going on because I talk with her behind the scenes, and she's always authoring some of the most amazing articles as of late on Libya.
You.
And you're the only person, you and Franklin Lamb are the only people really, putting to paper what the things that, Tarpley and Cynthia McKinney and, Dr. Lamb himself and all these other people on this fact-finding mission, you guys are the only ones that are putting to paper what they're talking about and what they're seeing on the ground, because it's a stark difference in reality between what's really going on and what the mainstream media is telling us that's going on over there, correct?
Yes, it is crazy to watch this. And I've been getting reports from sources inside Tripoli. And I want to emphasize this is multiple different people. Some of them don't even like each other. They're not even friendly with each other. So they would not be conspiring or collaborating to get these stories out, to tell stories. But they're all telling the same thing, which is NATO is losing. NATO rebels are not winning on the ground. NATO rebels are in a hard fight, and they're in hand-to-hand, street fighting throughout these little cities. However, they are not dominating these cities. They are losing these cities. And the corporate media is selling us a pack of goods. And I hope tonight we're going to talk about why that's happening.
Yeah, I want you to get into every little, detail that you've been finding out from the fact-finding mission, because, if it weren't for people like you and Franklin Lamb, Webster Tarpley, Cynthia McKinney, Wayne Madsen, we wouldn't have this information that's coming out of there. I mean, Tarpley came back and he spoke to people in the citizens in Tripoli, and they told him, we're figuring out how many soldiers we can kill when they come in and do a ground invasion of Tripoli. We're figuring out the families and the people that are the citizens, not human shields like the media says. Oh, they forced old ladies to stand out front of them. They weren't forcing those old ladies. Those old ladies were out there of their own free volition defending their land. See, that's what they don't tell you. The mainstream media is right about that. They keep saying Gaddafi uses human shields. That's horse crap. Those people are out there voluntarily. He gave out over a million AK-47s.
And listen, one of the things that Americans don't understand is everybody has an AK-47. Everybody knows how to use it. Now, if Gaddafi was afraid of his own people, why would he give them weapons which they could turn around and shoot his soldiers with? And the thing is, they're not shooting his soldiers, they're joining his soldiers. Even the women. Remember how we all started off where NATO was claiming that Gaddafi's soldiers were raping women? Well, and raping Libyan women. Well, what we found out was that Gaddafi was deploying armies, those units of women soldiers, like the old Amazon soldiers. And the women soldiers were in the front lines, making sure that there was no trouble for the women citizens. And it was Gaddafi, it was the NATO rebels who had been going out and raping women and killing people, beheading Libyan soldiers, castrating young men who refused to join the rebel forces because they said they weren't man enough. We have video on Federal Jack of sodomy. We have video of rebel forces force-feeding prisoners of war dead human bodies of other soldiers who have died. These people are sick, depraved individuals. They have been fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq, and they've returned home from the war, and they've brought violence breeds a diseased mind. that level of extreme violence does. And they've brought their violence home with them, and now they're trying to institute Sharia. Sharia law is conservative Islamic fundamentalism. And why are we supporting this?
Yeah, why are we supporting the very people that killed my friends in Iraq? I have a really big issue with that. And like Susan said, if you go to Federal Jack, there's right on the front when it loads up on the right side, there's a widget that says NATO war crimes, NATO and Al-Qaeda war crimes in Libya. And click on that, and it goes to a page, and you can see these videos that people were able to get to Susan, and she got to me, and we were able to get it up for everybody in the world to see, which hundreds of thousands now have seen these videos. And I mean, everybody's comments are the same, whether it be in English, French, whatever language they speak, the comments are all coming in the same thing. And when I even if they're in another language, I translate them, and it's all the same thing. This is horrible. Why the hell are we doing this? I mean, you see a video of these rebels, and I'm doing air quotes, these guys, these freedom fighters that we back, okay? They take a captured Libyan soldier and hang him out of a window upside down and saw his head off.
Hang him upside down. Listen to this. Hang him upside down and saw his head off. You cannot even, but it's supposed to be okay because they're black. That was a black soldier, am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a black soldier.
They're ethnically cleansing. The Arabs rebels that we're backing, okay? These guys are racist. They are rounding up. This is not. See, the mainstream media doesn't talk about this, but alternative media and like the fact-finding mission. This is another thing Tarpley talked about when he came back. They're rounding up black Africans, and they doesn't matter if they've done anything or not. Migrant workers that are from other parts of Africa that are in Libya. Yeah. They're rounding them up, beheading them, shooting them, cutting their throats, doing whatever they got to do, bayoneting them.
Yeah. Yeah, these people, and these are our allies.
Yeah,
the
and we're
United
backing
States
them.
has
That's our tax
chosen-
dollars going over there, Susan. How does that make
That's
you
right.
feel as a taxpayer?
That's our tax dollars. Go, tell them, say this again. It's on federaljack.com, and it's obamaslibya.com.
Yeah, if you go to federaljack.com, right on the front page, there's a widget about halfway down. It says NATO and Al Qaeda war crimes in Libya, and it's got a picture of two vultures sitting on top of a burning Libya. Go check it out, and you'll see these videos that Susan and I are talking about. They are utterly
You don't have to take our word for it.
Yeah,
you don't have to take our word for it. You can look at it yourself and make your own decisions.
Good point, Susan. We're going to break. We'll be right back.
Killed my entire family, murdered and tortured, raped and pillaged. I was only 5 and I was the only surviving witness.
Welcome back, guys. This is the second segment of the first hour of the August 21st edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. And I'm joined by my good friend Susan Lindauer. Susan, before we went into break, we were discussing who these rebel scumbags that we're actually helping in Libya are. And it hasn't changed. You know, it's the same crap. These are the same types of people that we dealt with in Afghanistan in the 80s with the Russians, and that we trained.
But listen, it's not even the same types of people. It is the same identical individuals who have moved from one battlefield to another. That's my only correction. It's the same the very same people.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, look at the one rebel guy that's in charge. He's total CIA op. You know, and I'm not saying that he was trained at Langley or anything like that. The CIA has assets people, okay, that they don't need to go through training. You know, Bin Laden was an asset. They find people with certain talents or that are in certain positions of power and other, you know, especially in lands like Afghanistan, and they use them to their best ability. And this guy that's running the rebels is a total CIA asset.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. But also we need to be really clear. These are people who have directly fought against U.S. soldiers in Iraq, who are now back home in Libya. And now they are the same men, the identically same individuals are now joined by the United States against Gaddafi. And it's kind of weird in that, because it's not like a group that is a group that it's more than just the fact that we're embracing a group of radical Islamists, which they are. These are radical Islamists who want to reinstate Sharia. These are the very same soldiers that have just fought us in another battlefield. And it's bizarre that we're embracing them. And I'd like to point out that something else. It's not only the rebels who are committing the war crimes. NATO itself has been bombing, launching precision bombing strikes on the water pipeline, the Gaddafi's brilliant water pipeline that carries that has irrigated the desert and has opened up economic development throughout Libya, pulling waters from deep underneath the desert and bringing it to the surface. It's an extraordinary achievement, and NATO is bombing this pipeline with depleted uranium, which means that the pure water underneath the desert will be contaminated with depleted uranium. It's a horrible thing, because even after the bombing is finished and NATO's war is done, the Libyan people are going to suffer for another 1,000 years over this stuff. And NATO, as of yesterday, yesterday or the day before yesterday, NATO launched a huge strike on the power plants across Libya. Now, this is the month of August, and power plants in the month of August are providing air conditioning. They're providing desperately, urgently needed cooling for the population. And so it's more than just taking away their light, which it does. You know, if you destroy the power, if you destroy the energy grid, you take away somebody's ability to have lights, you take away their food storage, you take away their water cleaning, you take away their air conditioning. And all of these things are now gone. And the thing is, destroying something like that, it means it's gone forever. I mean, it takes, you know, you can do a lot of damage in a day that would take hundreds of millions of dollars to fix. And it takes time to fix it, and equipment to fix it. And this is supposed to be a humanitarian war where NATO is supposed to be fighting to help the benevolent NATO, the loyal, good, trustworthy NATO is supposed to be fighting to free the worthy people of Libya. Ooh. You know, and elevate them on high. And yet, what are they doing? They're destroying the water supply. They're destroying the electrical grid. And the result of this is that, and the thing is, we do know that NATO bombs are doing these things. But what NATO has grossly miscalculated, and what has been wrongly told to the American people and the world community, is that NATO is therefore winning the war, and that Gaddafi, and I do believe this. A lot of people are going to be saying, gosh, do you think she's right? The media right now is telling us that Gaddafi is getting closed off and he's becoming more isolated and alienated from the people. But that is not apparently true. I'm receiving reports from all over Libya that, in fact, that the NATO rebels are being thrown out of the cities, or they're going into a city one day and fighting to take it, and then fleeing en masse to the next city, leaving the original city that they've quote-unquote captured, and Gaddafi's soldiers are moving right back in and taking control again. So Gaddafi's soldiers are staying in and guarding every city, whereas the NATO rebels are showing up for a fight and making a big media pronouncement. Oh, today we went to Sabratha, or we went to Salwan, or we went to Gorma or something, you know, some Zilwa, Zlitan, you know, and they're just moving from city to city to city, but they're not able to, because there's so few of them, they are not keeping a base in every city once they quote-unquote seize it. So they attack it, then they move to the next city. And so they're not actually holding any of this territory. And that's very important for people to understand.
It's very important for people to understand. I mean, look, Libya is a very, it's not as black and white as we'd like to think it is. You know,
yeah.
It's not as very simple as this or that. There's a lot of background stuff going on. You have, not only do you have Gaddafi fighting the rebels, you know, but you have these tribes that aren't even part of the Gaddafi regime or whatever, and they're offering to help fight these guys because they see NATO as a foreign aggressor, and they call them terrorists, Susan. The civilians in Tripoli are calling them terrorists.
Yes, of course they are. Because what are they doing? They're dropping bombs. They're slaughtering the children. They're destroying the health clinics. And it's interesting because they're attacking the infrastructure that Libya has been very proud of. Libya, Gaddafi, you know, yes, he's been in power for 40 years, and yes, that's a long time. And yes, it would be nice if there was a constitution, and it would be nice if there could be an orderly transition of power. However, on Gaddafi's defense, he has distributed the wealth very well. He has used Libya's money to build up Libya's social community infrastructure. There's lots of health clinics. You know, children have immunizations. Children have good schools. There's educational opportunities. There's computers. There's, you know, Libya is very proud to have used its wealth wisely. And they're angry that we're tearing that down. We're tearing down what they're proud of.
Of course. We're putting Libya back to third world status. You know, Gaddafi's not a saint by any stretch of the means, but at least he took the money and used it for the citizens' benefit and to better the country. And we're going in and we're just blasting everything back to the Stone Age like we did in Iraq and everywhere else that we go into.
Yeah.
Going to break.
The water.
Right
yeah,
back.
Thank you.
Change every day. It seems we're wasting away.
Welcome back, guys. Susan, before the break cut you off, or as other show hosts call them, the break Nazis, or the bumper Nazis, when they sneak up on you and they cut you off. The bumpers do. If you get into a conversation on the radio, sometimes you don't realize, that your segment time is going by uber fast, and they just come up on you. It always happens when you come on for some reason. Gee, it must be the interesting conversations we have.
I think it's great. I think it's really interesting. So I'm having fun. I hope your audience likes it too.
Oh, they love when you come on because you're always full of information. During the break, you were getting into some things that you wanted to discuss when we came back. So go right ahead and tell the audience what you were telling me.
Well, I want to start by saying this is really important. The British Guardian newspaper in London has done a study and says that Gaddafi's popularity has doubled during the current conflict. He is wildly popular in Libya. He has not lost the support of the Libyan people. He has reached new highs. He has not been as popular in 20 years, whereas the support for NATO-U.S. involvement in Libya has plummeted to 20% of the American people and the European public. So Gaddafi's support is like at 80% in Libya, and support for U.S. NATO involvement in Libya is only 20%. Now, this is, I believe, is an extremely important thing. Franklin Lamb has done a brilliant article, and it is posted on Federal Jack. And it talks about Obama and the problems that Obama is having. And, of course, everybody's wondering whether Obama's even going to get reelected next year. And this is a really interesting question because he is Obama has apparently told people in the White House that the U.S. has stepped in some shit, to put it bluntly, that the U.S. has really made a huge mistake in pursuing this war, and that we need to get out of there as fast as possible. And it is raising some interesting questions as to whether the corporate media is trying to give him a cover. Because, you see, the reason that he needs to get out of there is because of the bad press. The rebels, right up until this point, the rebels have been shown to be in a stalemate with Gaddafi. And so now Obama is saying, look, we don't want to be involved in this thing. We want out of this thing. And so what happens in the media? Immediately, the media starts saying, oh no, the war's going really well. Oh no, look, those rebels are just kicking butt. Ooh, they're kicking booty. They're moving so fast, they're taking these new towns. When in fact, on the ground, from inside Libya, the reports are exactly the opposite. They're saying that they're not taking these towns. The Libyan forces are holding them very successfully. They're not losing anything, but it seems like the corporate media is now weighing in to try to either protect Obama in his re-election bid, so that he doesn't look like a jerk for having done this. Or two, the European press is giving Obama a lot of great play, so Obama will have cover to stay in the fight. because otherwise we'd be pulling out of there. Because Obama's like, oh no, get me out of this thing. So now the Europeans are saying, oh look, it's going really well. It's going really well. But it is not going well. And that's why Popeye and I talked about doing this interview, because we want you, the listeners, to know this war is not going well for the United States. We know that you're all being told these stories, and the corporate media is feeding you a bunch of BS. They are lying.
Oh, yeah. Al Jazeera was doing it today before I came on today. I was doing just some research to see what the latest lies that were coming out of Libya today. And Al Jazeera is saying, oh, my God, the Libyan rebels are in Tripoli. They're entering the capital. They're taking
That is a lie.
And when you talk to the reporter from the person at Al Jazeera was talking to either a correspondent, a reporter, or whoever it was they were talking to, she said that actually isn't the case. It's not like columns of troops marching into Tripoli. It's maybe 15 or 20 ragtag insurgents running around that managed to get in, and they're getting in firefights with the Gaddafi forces, and they're getting their butts handed to them, on a silver platter. So it's not as the mainstream media would have you think. And the citizens of Tripoli are walking around with their guns, and they're ready too, and they're willing to go down fighting because it's their country. And, you'd think that we would have turned these people against America by now with all the crap that we've done.
Oh, yes. Oh,
and
yes.
Tarpley and all them say that these Libyan people are so nice to them, and they say, we understand that it's not you, it's your government. I mean, how understanding is that? You would think that as a foreigner, especially coming from your homeland is the homeland that's attacking this country and leading the charge and bombing the hell out of it, along with all of its European partners. And yet these people don't hate Americans because they know it's not us. They understand. I mean, talk about humility.
I will tell you something that I want you to know, because we have tried, the Americans who are over there, the expatriates, are getting really harassed by the rebels. But they have been, and they're being accused of treason, get this, it's treasonous for the American expatriates who are living in Libya and the European expatriates living in Libya to oppose the rebels. The rebels think that it's a criminal action for anybody to oppose their politics, and they are being really nasty to the peace camp. But the peace camp is going around trying to keep goodwill for Europe and the United States, and trying to make it possible for the United States to send U.S. oil back into Libya. And so we all realize that it is in the interest of peace. I've been doing a lot of education with these people about this issue, and I'm like, look, don't talk down the country, talk down the government if you have to, but just remember, in order for peace to resume, we're going to have to figure out how to get U.S. oil back into Libya. Because I know, having been a CIA asset, I know that's what Obama's going to have a condition for ending this thing, and it's going to have to be that the United States can go back into Libya. And if the United States cannot go back into Libya, then that is the biggest loss of all, and that's probably not a loss that the CIA will be willing to take. So I've been telling everybody over there that they have to be really careful to say that the American people oppose the war, and that we are trying to educate the American government. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I see. They don't want. Well, first of all, they know they look bad. They know they look like jerk-offs. They know that they shouldn't have done this. They know the American people are really not behind this at all. And the longer it drags on, the more it's going to be Obama's Achilles heel. If he wants to be reelected as president, he has to get our forces out of Libya before the election. Now, this is where politics comes into play. This is where the politics comes into play. Does he personally not want to bomb Libya? Probably not. He probably really doesn't care, and he could give two craps less about bombing Africans. Remember, Obama's the only president that they could have used to pull this off. Because if there was a white guy in office right now and he started bombing Africa, I can tell you what, there would be racism charges against the president of the United States right now. Because they would say, oh, my God, he's bombing Africa because it's a white guy trying to take out black people. Okay? But
That's right. That's right.
There's that outrage now that there's a black man killing black people and causing, isn't that genocide? Isn't that the equivalence of genocide?
That's right. That's
I want
right.
you guys to ponder that while we go to break. Think about that. Okay, think about that. If a white president did it, they'd be all over it. How come there's no outrage of what Obama's doing?
The real reason New York lost their towers. Don't sit back or hesitate to react to the impact. Many taking a nap. In fact, they would fake an attack to make way.
That was really brave of you guys to post that stuff.
Thank you, Susan. We're back, guys. And I can't tell you how I get lost in conversation with Susan during the break constantly because she's so easy for me to bounce ideas off of because she understands, not only does she know, because she was a CIA asset and everything, but she was put through the ringer herself, so she understands how the whole system works and how it chews up and spits out their own. And a perfect example of that is actually what happened to the CIA team on Pan Am Flight 103, the Lockerbie flight that they blame on Libya and they keep using as justification for America's involvement in attacking Libya. When you hear all these senators and congressmen pontificate, well, Gaddafi's got the blood of Americans on his hand. No, he doesn't. The CIA has the blood of Americans on its own American hands. That should be pissing people off. Where should the protest be starting? Langley, Virginia. They should be starting out at the gates at Langley. Okay, you want people to be pissed off? That's where you should start showing up because that's where there's a huge cancerous tumor in this country. It's called the Central Intelligence Agency, otherwise known as the Cocaine Importing Agency.
Yes, I'll tell you something. The Cocaine Importing Agency, CIA. Listen, when I was out in San Francisco, I met this really great guy who had punked the CIA. He called out on Facebook, and he mobilized his friends on Facebook to show up for a spontaneous, what do you call them, those flash mob protests at the CIA. And so all these people showed up to the CIA at the gates of Langley to protest their operations, and they had the sheriff of Fairfax County there, and he said the police had police tape up so that they couldn't enter the CIA headquarters, and there were people in the trees staring down at them with binoculars, and he said it was totally cool. He was so cool. He punked the CIA. I was like, you are my hero. It can be done, people.
They need to be punked. The CIA is not this omnipotent thing. Okay, yes, it's grown to a huge, massive organization that's completely out of control. I mean, the CIA, if you actually go look at the CIA, they're not even beholden to the U.S. government. The CIA is not actually a government agency. If you really look at it at its heart, it's actually a separate agency from the United States government that's contracted to the United States government. How does that make you feel? How does it make you feel to know that the CIA, before it was the CIA, was the OSS? And that worked with British Royal Intelligence back in World War II. And who ran British Royal Intelligence during World War II? Lord Rothschild. There's that last name again. Just keeps popping up in everything. Libya. There's another thing. There's other things going on in Libya too. A lot of people think it's just the oil. There's a huge freshwater aquifer underneath Libya, one of the largest in the world. Okay, massive freshwater, clean freshwater aquifer. Okay.
Yeah.
Gaddafi wanted to make the African gold dinar out of real gold.
Pay attention to the price of gold.
Yeah. Exactly. He wanted to make gold, and he wanted to give it back to the people. So they would physically have gold, not a certificate that says I owe you this much gold or this is good for this much gold like we have. Okay, and it's not even good for gold anymore. It's just this is legal tender, which means this is a piece of paper which is absolutely worth nothing. You should wipe your ass with it and throw it out because that's about what it's worth. And he wanted to give his people real gold. And
Libya has in its let me interrupt you right there.
Susan,
Libya has 100. Libya has 143 tons of gold. And Libya has one of the world's largest reserves of untapped gold, like in the ground. Like it has the California gold rush kind of gold. Libya has what do you call them? Veins of gold through the desert. Yep. The largest reserves of gold in the world are in Libya. Notice the price of gold is rising radically. And notice that our debt crisis.
I'm sure that has nothing to do with it, right? I'm sure all that gold.
The debt crisis in Washington, the debt crisis in France, Greece's debt crisis, Italy's financial crisis, and they're all looking at Libya. And Libya did not squander its oil wealth. Libya invested it very carefully. They're not extravagant and crazy like in Dubai. You know, in Dubai they had I think it was a soccer World Match Cup kind of thing, and they built they're getting ready for this big event in the future in like 2012 or 2013, and there's going to be a man-made cloud over the audience so that they don't get hot. And in Dubai, they're spending like $100 million, I don't know what it is exactly, but $100 million, some outrageous figure, to manufacture a cloud for this one event.
Weather modification over there. They're the weather weapons that people talk about. And I've done shows where I've talked about HARP and all this other weather technology and scalar technology and stuff that they use. But Dubai, for people that don't believe it, Susan is she brings up a good point. She's exactly right. If you ever want to show people that there is such things as weather modification equipment out there, tell them to go look what they're doing in Dubai. They're literally making it rain in the desert so that grass and trees and plants and flora and fauna will grow. I'm not kidding. And they're admitting that we're using weather modification so we can make it rain in a dry environment. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's actually a good use to, taking something that could be used for bad, and that's actually using it for good, making it rain in a dry area. You could bring water to plants and the people that need it and stuff like that. I'm cool with that. But it's just, not getting off too much on a side caveat. That's a perfect example. If you ever want to wake somebody up and say, look, there are weather weapons and stuff like that. They're making it rain in the desert, and they're making grass grow in the desert where there hasn't been grass for hundreds of years. Okay, so...
and it just shows, and that's the kind of thing that Dubai uses its money for. I mean, a cloud to cover the auditorium, the stadium where this World Cup thing is going to be, this big, huge tournament. I mean, and it's like people are dying in the world, and they're building a cloud. I mean, I just think Dubai is kind of crazy myself, but that's me. But Gaddafi is very different. Gaddafi is very practical. He doesn't want any of his people to have, there's not extravagant wealth and pockets of affluence that are outmatched by other people. Everybody has about the same money from the government. And that's kind of the way it should be, because it's public dollars, not private dollars. And they can have their own businesses and make, and have investments and therefore generate additional wealth. But everyone in society has free health care. They have free education. They receive university stipends. They are guaranteed a job when they come home, and if there's not a job for them, then they receive the income equivalent to what they would get from that job. I mean, that's like really, like if you're a doctor and you can't practice, but you've studied medicine, and Gaddafi figures that a doctor should be paid $75,000 a year, you're going to get that $75,000 whether you're working or not. Now, does that sound like a bad guy or a good guy? I mean, it sounds like it's a pretty good deal, actually.
And considering they were in like third world status, 40, 50 years ago, and now he was building a high-speed rail line. He was doing stuff with he was rebuilding his country. He was investing his oil wealth back into the people. And I'm not saying Gaddafi was an all-around great guy and we should love him and people should, we should vote for him in our election. I'm not saying that. But at least out of all these Middle East scumbag dictators that we controlled, like Mubarak and everybody else, at least he did things for his country. And there's a big important note here. His was one of the only countries around that area by the Middle East and northern Africa there that right now doesn't have a Zionist Rothschild-controlled central bank. Well, guess what? Guess what was opened within 2 weeks of the attack on Libya by NATO forces to help the rebels? An oil company and a central bank. The two first things they opened up. Bank. Isn't that interesting? That's telling.
Yeah, so that they could move.
Telling.
Yes. And they seized all of Libya's money, and they said that all of Libya, the West declared that Libya's money is now frozen and can only be moving through the central bank. Only the rebels are allowed to have access to it. No lines of credit, or Libya is not allowed to use any of its own money to buy food for itself, to buy medicines for the people, to repair any of the damage caused by NATO bombs. Only the rebels are allowed to have it, and only through that central bank, controlled by the Rothschilds.
Yep, and now Obama wants to give these barbarian terrorists, Al-Qaeda, the guys that were killing our troops, they want to give them an embassy in Washington. So now we're going to bring Al-Qaeda. We're going to bring Al-Qaeda home and have these scumbags walking around, and we're going to give them diplomatic immunity. No, F that. F that. Just like Danny Glover did in the end of Lethal Weapon, okay? Or was it I think it was part 2, when he revokes the guy's diplomatic immunity. That's what we need to do, people. We're going to break. We'll be right back. Susan's going to hang out for another half hour. Welcome back to the second hour of Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. Today's August 21st, 2011, and I'm joined by someone who I am proud to say is a friend of mine, Susan Lindauer.
I love Federal Jack and your show, too, Popeye.
Susan is one of the most awesome people I've ever met.
Fun.
I've had hours of conversations with her through email and off air, and I have to say, Susan, every time we talk about stuff, it's funny because we will be talking about something, and as we're talking about it, there's always constant. We like you'll get an email or I'll get an email, and I'm like, "Oh, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that?" And that actually happened during the break. You just got a breaking email out of Tripoli from one of the people that you know that's on the ground there giving you information. Go ahead and tell the audience what you've just been told, because this is appalling, shocking information, and if you weren't pissed off at what NATO's doing already, this is really going to piss you off. Go ahead.
Okay, this has just come through in the past 20 minutes. Today, 1,300 innocent, unarmed civilians were killed and 5,000 wounded in Tripoli alone in the last 11 hours. 3 Apache gunships are bombing nonstop, firing their mini cannons. All this is very close to us. NATO has openly stated that it will kill every Libyan in its way, who gets in its way to conquer Tripoli. So their attack is full force in effect. Quote, blood is literally running in the streets, all at the hands of NATO and Al-Qaeda. Poor internet, so short message. Okay, did you get that? 1,300 innocent civilians, unarmed civilians were killed. 5,000 wounded. NATO is launching a major attack tonight on Tripoli, or today in the past 11 hours, they say, on Tripoli. This is a humanitarian war, let us not forget, that is supposed to be saving the people of Libya from who? From the people of Libya. Gaddafi's support has gone up to about 80%, 80 to 85%. The rebels are called terrorists. They are called rebel rats, is what the people call them. And I have to warn all of you out there who think that killing Gaddafi is the answer. That is not going to do it. Remember what happened when they killed Saddam? Nothing. Killing Saddam did not end the insurgency in Baghdad. The people hated, the Iraqi people hated the conquest. They hated the invasion. They hated the occupation. And so they continued to fight, and they didn't pay hardly any attention at all to the fact that Saddam had just been hanged. They didn't
soldiers
care.
had guys, they had women, old women, spit at them. One of the best things you guys could do to listeners, there's a couple books out there written by soldiers that were in Fallujah and Iraq and stuff. One of them is called Ambush Alley, and there's a couple other ones. And I forget. There's one Fallujah with Honor, and yes, it's written from they're written from Marine standpoints. But these guys aren't like, yeah, I killed every one of those Iraqi people. When they wrote their accounts, they tell you that the people they were fighting were from Libya and Chechenian fighters. And their courage was not, we're fighting the infidels. Their courage was they had like 3-pound sacks of, heroin, or they were in one case they found like 1.5 pounds of cocaine in one machine gun nest, and they were because they were literally, they shot the crap out of these guys, and they wouldn't go down until they literally blew them to pieces. Like they had to be nothing left but goo. And when they got over there, there was like 1.5 pound sack of coke. It was just, and these guys were obviously they were like they were doing what Scarface did. They were, say hello to my little friend, and that's what they were doing. Okay, but they weren't even Iraqis. They were foreign fighters. They were coming from other countries, and these guys will tell you that
from Libya.
Yeah, and the men and women, especially the old ladies, would spit at them when they would do raids on houses, and they would say, "You are worse than Saddam. We hate you. We hate the United States. We thought you were coming here to save us, but you are worse than Saddam." So you wonder why they fight us the way they do. They hated Saddam Hussein, and they think we're worse. Doesn't that tell you anything?
Yes.
This is coming from
and they don't hate Gaddafi. And they don't hate Gaddafi. They hate the rebels. They are not, the people in Libya are not going to lay down their arms. And NATO is, there's an article that I have that Franklin Lamb wrote, and he says that the Obama administration is praying for the death of Gaddafi because they are hoping that it is going to go away, but they are starting to realize that it's not going to go away. They are starting to realize that there's a real danger that this stuff is going to stay in, that all of this is going to come into play. Let me just read you something from this article by Franklin Lamb. Advisors to John Kerry are said to be wondering what the purpose of this war is. One staff volunteered to Lamb this week, quote, "Both the CIA and Pentagon told our committee that green-lighting NATO to bomb Libya would be really quick and not even dirty. Now it's become a potentially endless nightmare, and it's down to who wins, Gaddafi or NATO. NATO insiders have advised congressional staffers that the apparent eternal U.S. armed coalition of the willing cannot afford another humiliation given Iraq and Afghanistan. So NATO has no plans to stop the bombing until one of 3 events occur. Those events are Gaddafi is killed, Gaddafi surrenders, or Gaddafi flees Libya. Now, let me just tell you, folks, having dealt with Gaddafi in the past myself directly for the Lockerbie negotiations, Gaddafi never will surrender. Gaddafi will never flee Libya. That is not going to happen. The White House is, in this article continues, the White House is said to be increasingly dubious that any of these eventualities will happen before Obama's 2012 election. President Obama is being advised by some members of the Foreign Relations Committee to, quote, just pull NATO's goddamn plug and get this mess behind us. They're starting to wake up. They're starting to say, don't do it anymore. That NATO feels it could potentially bomb Libya for years as part of, quote, necessary measures to protect Libya's civilians. Okay, those would be the, let's see, from this email, those are the same civilians who just, let's see, how many have just died? How many did we just say?
1,300, I think you said? Yeah,
yes,
like that,
yes. Let me just check. Let me just get that. Let me revert back to the other email.
So we have to blow you to smithereens to save you from Gaddafi.
1,300 unarmed civilians killed today, 5,000 wounded to save Libya from Gaddafi. To save to stop that mean man from hurting those poor innocent people, we're going to kill him instead. It's crazy.
Look, just stand there. Everybody stand against that wall. Okay. Now, look, we're going to shoot all of you, and we're going to kill you. But it's for your own good. I promise you.
Yeah.
We're saving you from Gaddafi. Really? Really, we are. Yes, I know this sounds just like what the Nazis told to everybody, that all the people that they rounded up, all the Czechs and the Polish and everybody, when they rounded up all the Dutch people, they rounded them all up and they said, we're just taking you away. We're going to put you in the ghettos because it's for your own safety. We promise. Just stand against this wall for 1 second. Yeah, just stand there. Okay, open fire. Yeah.
Yeah.
Killing somebody makes any amount of goddamn sense at all. We're going to break. Stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back.
They killed my entire family, murdered and tortured, raped and pillaged. I was only 5 and I was the only survivor. I seen a million faces and I rocked them all.
Welcome back, guys. Susan, since this is the final segment that you're going to be able to hang out with us, do me a favor and tell the listeners where they can get your book, a copy of your book, and if you're still doing the book tour, if you're going to be doing any like showings or whatever, or signings or whatever you want to call them, let the listeners know where your stuff will be.
Great. My book, of course, is Extreme Prejudice, the terrifying story of the Patriot Act and the cover-ups of 9/11 in Iraq. And it's available on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. And I'm signing copies that are bought on Amazon, so check that out. We are, I'm launching I just finished a tour of the West Coast, and I'm hoping to start a tour of colleges and universities on the East Coast this fall, in September or October, in time to the 9/11 anniversary, and the critical importance of getting rid of this war on terror. And we have to reconsider what's happening here. We are making huge mistakes. We are destroying ourselves with this war. We are our own worst enemy, and we need to remember we did 9/11 to ourselves. But I'll tell you, I think that this thing with Libya, the reason they're escalating the war right now is that Obama has wanted to get out of Libya. And the word from inside the White House and the word from the intelligence community is that Obama is realizing that he has stepped in doggy doo-doo, and he wants to pull the United States out, and so NATO is trying to give him a victory so that they won't leave and he'll stay in. You see, they're trying to there's been a stalemate for months, and so they're making a big push to see if they can break Gaddafi's back. But that is not what's happening. The media is lying to you. They're telling you that Gaddafi is losing these towns, but I'm receiving messages from all over Tripoli, from all over Libya, from different sources. Some of these sources are not friendly to each other. Some of them outright hate each other because there's so much tension over there that there's a lot of infighting right now. But they don't like each other, but they're telling the same story, which is that the Libyan government is still in control. Libyan government, Gaddafi's government, has Misrata. They have Sabratha. They have Zilwan. They have Zlitan. They have Zawiya. And what will happen is the rebels are moving from town to town to town. So rather than what they do is that the rebels go in, they fight, they have a victory, and then they go to the next. Then they leave and they go to the next town. And so what the media is doing is the media is very dishonest. They're telling you, oh, look, the rebels had a victory today. And, oh, now they're leaving and they're going somewhere else. And, oh, they had a victory today. But that's not what's actually happening. The rebels are engaging, and then Gaddafi's forces are throwing them out. And then they're going to the next town, and they're having another fight with Gaddafi's forces. And then Gaddafi's forces are taking back control of the town while the rebels move to the next community. But at the end of the day, who is still in control of the town? That is the important question. And the answer is, it is Gaddafi. Gaddafi is still in control of these areas. They are running a psyop. The corporate media is running a psyop. Especially the European media is very afraid that Obama is going to pull out of Libya. And Obama's people are saying, get out of there. Senator Kerry's Committee on Foreign Relations is saying this is a disaster. Obama is now realizing that he could be trapped in this war through the next election cycle. And that is exactly what I think is happening. Because I'll tell you, even if you kill Gaddafi, and I will tell you now, I assure you, never believe any story that Gaddafi is going to resign. Never believe any story that Gaddafi is going to flee the country. It is never going to happen. Only if he dies is this going to change. And even if he dies, the Libyan people are so outraged that NATO would try to impose any government on them. They will. The Libyan people will continue to fight, and it'll be just like the death of Saddam Hussein. It will not matter, with one exception, and this is a critical exception. The Iraqi people were mad at Saddam. The Libyan people think Gaddafi's a martyr and a hero. So if you kill Gaddafi, you will have martyred him to the highest degree, and then you will have even more sentiment, popular sentiment, supporting his cause, and they will die. Which could
actually spark real terror attacks in Europe.
Yes.
So we could actually, and they know this stuff, Susan. See, this is where it's tricky. A lot of people say, well, why would they do that? And they say, well, like they always love to say, well, the CIA calls it blowback. No, they do this stuff on purpose because they know it's going to escalate. And then the escalation, the terror attacks, which would be just really a response to us killing their leader. It wouldn't be a terror attack, but they would call it that. It would get labeled that. Yeah. And in comes the Orwellian police state and more war, perpetual death, perpetual prison planet takeover.
Yes. Yes, that's right, because you see, if NATO bombs Libya, that's a good humanitarian effort. But if the Libyan people defend themselves against NATO occupation forces, then they're bad. They are terrorists who must have their backs broken. The people must be smashed.
In Iraq. Like the insurgents in Iraq, and 10
years later,
troops. How could you support it? Well, think about it. Just think about it from their perspective for a minute. Put yourself in their shoes for 1 minute. If the Chinese came to the United States, invaded us, took everything over, and then were here years later, and they said it was for our own good, but they were here years later. They were killing our people and just rounding people up in the middle of the night and all this other stuff. Wouldn't you be setting roadside bombs? Wouldn't you be throwing grenades at you? And I'm not saying that I condone killing our troops because the men and women, they're pawns, they're used, they're puppets. So I feel bad for the individual humans, but I understand why they're attacking us. I'm a veteran of 2 wars myself. I understand why they're attacking us. We're invaders. The men in Afghanistan of fighting age, they did a poll like a year ago, and none of them even know what 9/11 was. They don't have any clue what 9/11 was. All they know is there's foreign invaders in camouflage in their country killing their people, and that they got these drone strikes from the air out of nowhere, like the finger of God coming down, and that's all they know. They don't know 9/11, Bin Laden, or all this other crap. And yet the arrogant Americans are like, well, you know, them backwards schmucks over there, they ought to know better. That's what happens when you're in the middle of a war zone. I've had that. Well, kids get killed because they shouldn't be in the middle of a war zone. We brought the war zone to them, dick. Okay?
Yeah.
We did, those little kids weren't like, oh, bring me to a war. I want to get shot at. No. We brought the war zone to their country. So if you reverse that, if someone shot your kid, if the Chinese came in and shot your kid, how the hell would you feel?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And this is just, and let's not forget that as of March, okay, as of February of this year, Libya was a peaceful, stable country. They had for 40 years they lived in peace. They had high economic standards. Nobody was bothering anybody. They weren't invading anybody. They weren't threatening anybody. They were just minding their own darn business.
And then we start bombing the hell out of them. Susan, thank you so much for coming on today. As always, it's a pleasure hanging out with you.
I loved it. Awesome.
We'll be right back. Susan, again, you're an awesome guest. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Take care, Popeye.
Hey guys, it's Popeye from federaljack.com. Don't miss my show, Down the Rabbit Hole, Sundays from 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the Orion Talk Radio Network.
Have you ever seen the sun over the Rocky Mountains shining, or touched the sands of a southern Florida beach? Have you seen a grown man cry, or a child that's slowly dying? Have you looked inside to see all that you can see?
I've done all of the above. That's why it's one of my bumper songs. Hopefully it inspires you guys to, look deeper into things. That's why there's always a little, sometimes there's, I'm gonna start a conspiracy of my own here. Sometimes there's hidden meanings behind my bumper music. Ooh. There's not really hidden meanings. There's just some of my music I put up for a reason. But now that I joked about that, someone's going to cut that clip out somewhere on YouTube. There's going to be Popeye comes clean. He works for the New World Order. And all you're going to hear is me saying there's hidden messages inside my bumper music. Oh, I can already see it. Oy. All right. Oh, and I just said oi. There's another one. And now I'm going to be called a Zionist because I said oi. All right. Anyway, what Susan and I didn't get a chance to get into while she was on with me, we wanted to get back into Lockerbie really quick. And basically, we've covered this before. You guys can see my my older interviews, the archives and stuff. By the way, I have a new YouTube channel specifically for the archives of my full-length shows, all one video clip. That no more, eight-piece segments. They're all going to be in full-length clips on this new channel. The channel name is The Answer to 1984 Is. Again, The Answer to 1984 Is. And it's all one word, and then you'll see it come up. And I had a listener and, someone that follows me on Federal Jack and listens to the show, and he's an accomplished video editor, amazing video editor, and all around awesome individual. And he had the channel sitting for a while, and he was like, "Hey, would you like this extra YouTube channel?" And I was like, "Sure." And he gave me the channel. It turns out it has full length capabilities to upload, so I'm going to use that to host all the full length episodes on YouTube of my shows. There's already about 10 or 15 shows in there that I've rendered and put up there. I'm going back and I'm rendering all my old shows and putting them up there. So keep an eye on it. And if you go to federaljack.com, under special up at the header, you'll see a drop-down menu pop. And on the drop-down menu, you'll see it'll say Down the Rabbit Hole with Popeye show archives. I think it's what it's titled. But you'll see it says show archives. Click on it, and it'll bring you to a page, and it's got all the shows that I've rendered so far up there. And it's got the title, so you know what date it was and, kind of what the show was about, and you can listen to it, whatever. So anyway, with Susan Lindauer, before she got off, we were talking about Lockerbie. And we've talked about it. Like I said, I have to render the full-length version of the previous interviews I've had with her. But Lockerbie was basically a CIA, little black ops team was, on the ground doing their thing, and they got involved in drug smuggling. And they got really involved in it real heavy. And I don't remember exactly who it was, but somebody that was already on the ground had called back to Washington and said, you need to send a team out here and take a look at this. The team from an oversight team from the CIA came out, checked them out, and said, you guys got to knock this off. This has to stop. We're going back to Washington, and we're going to officially get you guys, sanctioned on this. We're going to pull the plug. And these guys were making too much money hand over fist, in their own pockets with this backdoor drug dealing they were doing to allow this to happen. So they got, if I remember correctly, it was Syrians. They got a couple Syrians to, obviously controlled by the CIA, to plant a bomb on the plane. And their plane was Pan Am Flight 103, which blew up over Lockerbie, Scotland. So the reason that plane was blown up was to kill the CIA oversight team that had caught their own guys smuggling drugs and were going back to Washington to literally shut it down. So that's an example of how they eat their own, okay? These black ops, again, not everybody that works for the CIA is bad. There are good people that work there, and even they get offed by their own people. So, that's how sick these people are. But after they blew the plane out of the sky, they conveniently blamed it on Libya. So all those American lives that were lost, see, they never tell you there was a CIA team on board. And as Susan explained, what's really bad is the fact that there was forewarning. Like the U.S. State Department had told its people, get off the flight. Don't fly on that flight. Do not fly on that flight. So a massive amount of people changed their tickets for a separate flight for another day, and which allowed for this massive influx of open seats. And there were a bunch of college kids waiting on standby to go home. And they packed themselves aboard that plane, which made it even more sweeter for the CIA douchebags, because now they knew that they could blow the plane out of the sky and push the blame on Libya, and that would cover them and even give more justification to bring more people and do more things and bring more money down the way for them. So it was a win-win. They got rid of the team, and they would have a justification. Not only would they have a cover, but they would have justification to even funnel more money into them through the proper channels so that they could continue with their illegal drug practice. That's how the New World Order works. Gaddafi didn't blow Pan Am 103 out of the sky. The CIA blew Pan Am 103 out of the sky. That's how they do things. So just keep that in mind next time you hear one of these schmucks on TV pontificating how Gaddafi's got American blood on his hands. No, he doesn't. Langley's got American blood on its hands. A lot of it. They don't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They care about their agenda. And if you get in the way of that agenda, first of all, they would kill us soon as look at us anyway. So when you get in their way, now you're an obstacle. Now they'll go through you. They won't even just cast you aside. They'll make sure they go through you and smash you. So just remember, always do your homework. When they start blaming somebody, he's a bad guy, he's this, he's that. They vilified Saddam Hussein as well. I'm not saying he was a good guy, but they vilified him in order to justify attacking the first Gulf War with the whole incubator baby crap. And they brought the little girl on I saw them chucking babies out of incubators. Whoa, and they were throwing them out the windows and everything else, taking them right out of incubators and just tossing them. And it turned out to be a complete farce. She ended up being an embassy official's daughter or something like that. So you have an embassy official who gets his kid and says, read the script just for daddy. You're just going to go out there and do this, okay? And blah, 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 blah. And they got money or whatever, a higher political position or whatever. That's what that was about. And then the second Gulf War, we were Iraq Part 2. We need to get him because he was part of 9/11. I said to my mother on the morning of 9/11, I turned to her, and I my old laptop, I had changed the screensaver to say Iraq is next. And my mother was like, she was kind of in agreement, but she wanted to know why I thought that way. And I said to her, I said, look, you would know as well as I do that they want to, Junior wants to go in there. And at the time I didn't know, I wasn't as savvy in politics as I am now 10 years ago. So, I mean, I knew a lot for, somebody of my age, but I didn't know as much as I know now, and I didn't understand how deep and dark the rabbit hole was and how twisted and perverted and evil these pricks are. But I knew that Bush wanted to go in. I knew that he wanted to finish the job that his daddy had started, along with, now you find out it's Richard Pearl, Wolfowitz, Rumsfeld, and the rest of those schmucks over at the PNAC, okay? But that's a side caveat in itself. The point is, that day I knew. I had a hunch. I was like, we're going to end up going into Iraq. And my mother agreed. She was like, you're right, I think we are. They're going to use this as an excuse to go into Iraq, which I had a problem with. Now, I didn't mind have a problem hunting down the guys that did 9/11. But I had a problem, even back then, with being used as an excuse to go into Iraq and then, under the pretext of 9/11. Now, when we did hit Iraq, you get lost up in the patriotic fervor, but I wasn't running around with a flag or anything like that. I remember sitting watching the strikes, and we were just like, man, this is not good. This is like the start of something really, really bad. Not many people had a good feeling about it. I could tell you, anybody involved in the military at the time, most people I know all had this horrible feeling in the pit of their stomach. Going to break, guys. We'll be right back. This should be our new anthem, the national anthem. We got to walk around saying we're not going to take it anymore. We got to get mad as hell, stick our heads out the window, start screaming. Ugh. Do something. Get involved. Spread the word. I'll give you a quick recap for the show, just in case anybody's just tuning in. Susan Lindauer broke some just getting out of Libya news literally maybe not even an hour ago that she got it. And we got it during the hour break. So not even 47 minutes ago, she broke the news that NATO has killed 1,300 civilians and wounded over 5,000 in Tripoli using gunships and attacking civilians. Of course, I'm sure Gaddafi will be blamed, and they'll say, well, they were being used as human shields, and it couldn't be helped, or they were firing on the helicopters. That's just as bad as saying that if you put your arm up when a police officer is smashing you in the face with his baton, that you're assaulting the officer because you're trying to protect your face and trying to protect yourself by putting your arm up to block it. They charge you with assault. That's what they're saying. They're saying if you don't let the helicopter gunships shoot you as a civilian, then you must be a terrorist because you're shooting at them. Do you see the Orwellian white is black, black is white going on? Do you see how everything is reversed? If you defend yourself, you're evil. You should allow yourself to be victimized. damn it. That's the way it is. If you're a good person, if you care about other people, if you're not racist, then you will allow yourself to be shot and killed. That's just the way it is. That's a good patriotic thing to do. Do you want freedom and democracy in your country? Then you should allow yourself to get shot and blown up. Don't you want to be free? Oh, you want life too? Well, we can't give you both. You see how it works? They want you to think some retarded Orwellian crap like that. They want you to think that we're blowing you up and shooting you for your own good. That's what they're telling. That's how they want you to look at this battle in Libya. That we're going in and rescuing these civilians and shooting them is for their own damn good. And, they're terrorists if they don't like it. And, there are brainwashed morons in this country that'll go, damn Libyans. They should be happy that we're in there doing their work for them. Maybe if these people stood up to their leader, we wouldn't have a problem. So what happens when China does that to the United States and they say, well, there's food riots in the United States, which that's going to happen eventually. So what happens if we have riots like they had in the UK and the United States police force, the police forces in this country will use much greater force than the UK cops did, okay, which is going to cause even more protests and problems and then even more riots, okay? Then what's going to happen? You think the Chinese are going to bring over a no-fly zone because they're going to be seeing cops beating people with nightsticks and the government's not doing anything about it? What happens if they decide to declare martial law in the country, right? And they start rounding people up. And then China says, oh, no, you can't round your innocent civilians up. We're going to start doing airstrikes. Poof, poof, poof. That's what we're doing in Libya. Gaddafi's fighting al-Qaeda, which we trained and we're helped fomenting to attack him. And then when he goes after them, we tell them no. And then we blow up they say it's a no-fly zone. But we're attacking his tanks. His tanks roll around in fights with rebel forces, and the rebel forces call in airstrikes on him. And by the way, a lot of these airstrikes where you see NATO taking out rebel forces, and then the rebel forces are the media lies and they say, oh, it's decimating the morale of the rebels. The morale is kind of low because they lost friends. What they're not telling you is it's like one rebel faction calling in airstrikes on another rebel faction. Okay, so what happens? Say NATO and Obama and the rest of these New World Order scumbags, say they get what they want in Libya. Say they get what they want. Say they kill Gaddafi. Then what? This transitional council is already executing black Africans that are quote-unquote civilians. They're not part of Gaddafi's regime. They're saying they're Gaddafi loyalists and they saw their heads off. That's how they, oh, you must like Gaddafi. You kill him. But that's not why they're killing him. They're killing him because they're black. It's racist. Tripoli talked about this. They're killing black Africans because they're black. And then they're saying that they were Gaddafi loyalists or this or that or the other, some other crap. The mainstream media does not want to touch that. They, la, 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 la. I don't want to know about any of this, la, 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 la. That's actually the mainstream American and, mainstream European morons. The media is actually complicit in making them like that. Because the media is supposed to do the exact opposite. Their job is actually to wake people up and piss people off. As I've said, I've played the JFK clip from his famous speech. Media is not meant to report the mundane or tell you about Britney Spears' underwear or who Paris Hilton just had sex with. Who cares? She's had sex with everybody. She's like a doormat. Okay, or excuse me, isn't the joke she's like a doorknob, everybody gets a turn. There you go. Who cares about that? Everybody knows she's a whore. I don't care. Why does anybody pay attention to Nancy Grace? You want to know how you put an end to people like Nancy Grace and Anderson Cooper and Bill Scumbag O'Reilly and Glenn Loser Beck and Ed Fathead Big Mouth Nazi Socialist mixed turd face Schultz, because I can't stand him, and Chris Scumbag Matthews. Okay, you know how you stop all these people? You know how you shut them down? Turn off the television. Tell your friends stop watching that crap. Only go to alternative media websites. And you don't have to just go to federaljack.com, although I by all means go. but go check out other places. Check out bobtuskin.com. Check out the intelhub.com. You know, if you want to, go check out Alex Jones's websites. I don't care. I'm not in this to pat myself on the back and be like, I'm awesome, la, 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 la. I don't care. Go check out a broad variety of things. Don't just believe what I say. Don't believe what any other radio host says verbatim. Go do the research yourself, because I guarantee you, I will give you the tools. I will say, here are the books, here are the movies, here's this, here's that, here are the articles. Here's my website, my YouTube stuff. I will give you the tools. I will give you the knowledge. What you do with it is up to you. I don't want you to believe me at all. I don't want you to be like, oh my God, Popeye's right, we just have to listen to him. No, I want you to say, well, okay, don't take it with a grain of salt and blow it off, but don't believe me 100% either. Go research it for yourself, because I could lead the horse to the water, but unless the horse drinks itself, it's not going to appreciate the water, and it's really not going to want to drink the water unless it wants to, okay? You have to want to learn, and you have to want to wake up. I can't force this on you, and I'm not trying to by any means, but I invite you to try to prove me wrong. You won't be able to. You won't. The stuff I talk about and I come on and talk about, I've researched. I wouldn't come on air and say blah, 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 so that somebody could be like, wow, Popeye's a schmuck, look. You know, and the only way that people can come and try to debunk is always, of course, with the official story and links and stuff like that. Give me something real. You know, as I've said before, when a skeptic, after being shown tons and tons of evidence contrary to what he believes, still says, I don't believe it, now you're not being skeptical anymore, you're just being a dick. There's a huge difference, okay? There's a huge difference between being skeptical about something and being a dickhead and being closed-minded. Large difference. Okay? That's the way it is. And I can't stand people that aren't willing to at least listen to things. At least listen with an open mind. You don't have to believe it. But when you research and the evidence points to it and you still want to deny it, you're either in willful ignorance. That's willful ignorance, like willful denying, I don't know, la, 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 la. Or there's more to it. Maybe someone's paying you to be like that. And I'm referencing people that, debunkers, as I'm doing air quotes. There is no rhyme or reason to that crap other than the two reasons I just gave. You're either being willful or ignorant because you're afraid of the truth, or you're being paid to say that crap. Either way, it's not productive to my reality and the reality of everybody else, because you're helping keep us enslaved in this 5 cents BS crap reality. Okay, you're helping manifest this prison planet into a reality because of your inaction. Like Edmund Burke said, all there is, I'm going to paraphrase the quote, but all that requires for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. So yeah, you could be a great guy and a great individual and not be part of the New World Order, but sitting on your ass and doing nothing while they go marching into power, you're just as guilty. The German people did that in Germany. The History Channel actually did a good job for once, and there's this like hour-long show they did about how Germany came to be what it was. And they showed it wasn't about Hitler's rise to power and that. It was about the people in Germany itself and how their apathy towards what was going on and to go along, to get along, is what created the German police state and the war and helped foment it. That's the way it is. Guys, I'm out of time for today. I'll see you again on Wednesday. And don't forget, second week of September, we're going to 2 hours, 10 to midnight. Joe Joseph is going to 2 hours as well. You'll also be able to listen to his show right after mine, coming up right now, so stay tuned. And keep an eye and an ear out for Manic Mondays coming soon.